31, but I can remember my mother saying, we were never broke. We always had a silver dollar that I kept. And she said we always had food because we lived on a farm. So we always had milk and vegetables that we canned. But growing up, we never had electricity or running water till I think I was in high school, right after World War II.
I remember the Roosevelt election, but in 1929, the doctors told my father that we needed to go to West because my mother was frail and my sister had pneumonia twice and said she can't make another winter. That was before antibiotics. So we got as far as Minnesota, and my grandfather, who had been a cowboy in the 1800s, said, "You'll never make it across the Great Divide with that rate." So he traded my dad this 24 Ford touring car for this 1918 Buick. And so between Grandpa and my father, we put everything we owned on it. So when you showed the grapes of wrath, I've lived it. And we made it to Arizona. Well, by 1930, work was so scarce in Arizona, and my father said he wouldn't pick cotton because he knew he'd starve to death. He didn't have the dexterity to pick cotton, but he cleaned irrigation ditches for 25 cents an hour if he could get it. He was an electric lineman, a skilled tradesman, but there was nothing. And so we lived in two tents. One was 9 by 9 and the other was another one, with 3 army cots and 5 kids, so the girls shared an army cot. And we lived we lived on the edge of Phoenix, then we went on out into the farming community and lived along the river. And as I was telling my son, it wasn't very exciting to take a bath in a wash tub and the only heat you had was this little kerosene stove. And so so when the New Deal came, the WPA was a godsend. My father worked until he could get a job. He was a pretty good mechanic, so he took less wages because nobody wanted to be on the dole. And we lived in the tent for about 18 months. And then, well, my parents took us to church and sent us to school. That, my dad said, was the way out of this mess. And so when I got into high school, they had the NRA, which was a $4 a month stipend. And so I graded typing papers after school for about 2 years. Never wanted to see another typing paper in my life. But, you know, you do survive, and out of that depression, you also, I think, look at a dollar a little differently than the next generation. That's my story.
Chicago, so I can tell you what life was like then. My father had lost his job and was hunting every day in January for a job. He fell down on the ice and actually broke his finger. But they couldn't go to the doctor. My mother took 2 popsicle sticks, put it together, and made a splint, and that was it. And they found out years later when they went to the dentist that it had broken. Another thing you may have heard, Marshallville's was our big store and had a big open area. People were jumping off and killing themselves and killing people down below. So they put up fences all along, and now the fences are still there. You can go up, you know, I mean, they're not looking like fences, but you can do that. And then the thing that shocked me, my grandmother had cash, so we ate well. But when we got married and went to California, we went to school with people that were Okies, children of Okies. And they told us they had nothing to eat but beans.
One of my biggest memories of the Depression is the people who would come to the door for food, usually a man. And he'd knock on the door and ask if there were any chores he could do around the house, in turn for food. We had a big lawn at the time, so lots of times they mowed the lawn. But if there wasn't anything they could do, my mother would always sit them on the back porch or a warmer place if it were cold, and bring them a sandwich and a cup of coffee and a cookie or whatever we had. And they would sit there and eat it, and they were always very grateful and very polite. And we had several of those, I can remember.
Like milk was put on your porch? How often was that quart of milk not there because somebody had taken it?
They were tramps, but they looked for work. They went house to house looking for work. During the Depression, my father worked for I. Miller, and they had a big strike. So my father said, "The heck with this noise. I have 7 mouths to feed." So he borrowed money from his brother over in Italy, who was a banker. Started his own business, a shoe repair and shoemaker. He made mine and my brother's shoes, and we always had shoes. And I could still remember taking our nap on a large piece of leather that he cut in half, about 6 feet, on each of them. My brother slept on one, and I slept on the other. And during lunchtime, when the bars opened up in 1933, a bar opened across the street. My father went over, got his beer, plopped the 2 kids up on a counter, and we ate lunch, free lunch. And he fed himself and 2 kids that way.
I just want to say, you know, don't put all your eggs in one basket. My grandmother always said that because they lost their savings. They had all their savings in one bank. And to this day, I never put all my savings in one bank. But that was kind of an old expression that she said, and I do think it had meaning.